Hello, sixth graders. We are in our algebra unit. Our lesson today is on rational number equations or solving division and fraction equations. Our learning target for today is I can solve one-step equations that include fractions and decimals. All right, something to think about here is think back to when we were working with our fractions and how we would divide fractions. Okay, what information would help us to be able to solve this problem? If we had 3/4 times g equals 6, what things would we need to know in order to help us to solve? One thing I want you to have written down in your notes is right here, the inverse property of multiplication. The property of multiplication and its multiplicative inverse is 1. So what that's saying is that if we take a fraction, such as 3/4, and we flip it to be 4/3, that's going to equal 1. 3 times 4 is 12, 4 times 3 is 12, so 12 over 12 equals 1. So if we were to multiply those together, they would equal 1. And then it's shown with algebra as well, so have that written down. So the first thing that I want you to do here is we're going to practice finding the multiplicative inverse. So all that we're doing is we're taking fractions and we are flipping them. So if we have 2/5, the multiplicative inverse of that would be 5/2. We took the fraction. Okay, so all we're doing is we're taking the fractions and we're flipping them, changing the numerator and the denominator. Now, if we have something like 2 1/3, we have a mixed number. The first thing we need to do is make it improper. So again, to do that, we take 3 times 2, add the 1, so 7/3. Then we take that and we now flip it. So then the multiplicative inverse from there would be 3/7. Okay. Try these next ones on your own and then come back and check. So if we have 5/6, we take that and we flip it and it becomes 6/5. 1 1/2, change it to a improper fraction first. 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1 is 3. So we would have 3 over 2. Flip that to be 2 over 3. If we have a whole number, first we need to write that as a fraction. Well, all whole numbers are written over 1. Then we would flip it to be 1 over 8. 4/3, multiplicative inverse of that would be to flip to become 4, or 3/4. Okay. So now, division equations involving rational numbers. So we need to write this part down here, the multiplication property of equality. It says that if you multiply each side of an equation by the same non-zero number, the two sides remain the same, or they are equal. So if you have 5 equals 5, if you multiply both sides by 2, they are still equal to each other. If you have x over 2 and you multiply both sides by 2, they are still equal. If you have 2/3 x and you multiply each side by 3/2, they're still equal. Okay. So now we are going to solve and check this. So we have 7 equals n over 4. Okay. So we start with our train tracks. Now we are taking n and we are dividing it by 4 in the equation. The opposite of division is multiplication. So we are going to multiply both sides by 4. The 4's cancel, and we are left with n equals, well, 7 times 4 is 28. Now we are going to do our check. 28 divided by 4, well, yes, that does equal 7, so n equals 28. So if you're given a division problem, you do the inverse of division, which is multiplication. All right, so we have some here now where we are using division, but they involve decimals. So we follow the same steps, okay? Start with your train tracks. Now, since we're taking d divided by 3.5, we are going to multiply both sides by 3.5. Remember, I'm going to be looking for all of these examples to be done in your notebook. The 3.5s cancel on that side, and you are left with d equals. Now when we're multiplying decimals, we forget that they're there. We line the numbers up on the right. So 5 times 2 is 10. 5 times 4 is 20, plus 1 is 21. Add a 0. 3 times 2 is 6. 3 times 4 is 12. Add those together. Now I have 1, 2 decimal places, so I move over 1, 2 in my answer. So d equals 14.7. Okay. Next one. 6 equals m divided by 8. We need to make sure that we also check our solutions. So, train tracks. Since we are dividing by 8, we're going to multiply both sides by 8. So then we are left with m equals 8 times 6 is 48. Now we need to do our check. 48 divided by 8 equals 6. So there's our answer. Next one, train tracks. What are we going to multiply each side by? Whatever is with the variables. So we're going to multiply by 2.8. So then we are left with p equals. Okay, 8 times 5 is 40. 8 times 1 is 8, plus 4 is 12. 2 times 5 is 10. 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1 is 3. Add those together. 4, 1, 2. So 2 spots over in our answer. So P equals 4.2. Okay. Now we need to do our check here. So we are going to take 4.2 and we're going to divide it by 2.8. When we are dividing decimals, let me zoom out here a little. Top number is going to go inside the bracket. Okay, move the decimal 1 spot to the right, carry it up above. How many times does 28 go into 42? Well, 28 times 2, 16, 56, that's too many, so it goes in there once. 3, 12, 12 minus 8 is 4, 14. Well, we want it to equal 1.5, so let's see if it does equal, if it goes in there 5 times. So 28 times 5, that would be 40, 10, 14. So, yes, that works. That's what we were hoping to get. So here's our answer. Okay. Next one, k divided by 4.7 equals 2.3. Train tracks. Now, since we are dividing, we do the opposite, which is multiplication. So we are going to multiply both sides by 4.7. Those cancel. K equals. Okay, do our log multiplication here. 7 times 3 is 21. 14, 15, 16. 4 times 3 is 12. 8 plus 1 is 9. 1, 8, 10. 1, 2 decimal places, 1, 2. So k equals 10.81. Now, in order to do a check, I need to take my answer and divide it by 4.7 and see what we get back. Zoom out again here for more space. Top number goes on the inside. Bottom number on the outside. Move the decimal however many spots to make it a whole number. Carry the decimal up above. Now, 47 can't go into 1, can't go into 10. Probably twice into 108. 8, 9. Okay, so that's 94. Do your subtraction. 14, bring down your 1. Well, we're hoping it goes in there 3 times, so I'm going to go 47 times 3. 21, 12, 13, 14. Yes. Equals 2.3. That's what we were hoping to get back. So k equals 10.81. So anytime you have division, you do the opposite and multiply each side. Now we're going to look at when we have fractions with our equations. So study tip here to write down, pause and write. The expression 3/4 x can be read as 3/4 of x. So 3/4 multiplied by x, 3x divided by 4, or x divided by 4 multiplied by 3. Okay, so I'm going to read that again here. So basically 3/4 of x means that you are taking 3/4 multiplied by x. You could take 3x divided by 4 or x divided by 4 times 3. So it's just kind of breaking it up into the different steps. Now, we have our problem here. I'm going to write it off to the side so we don't have that word solve in the way, but 3/4 x equals 12/20. Now, we are taking 3/4 and it's multiplied by x. We know that the opposite of multiplication is division, so we are going to be dividing both sides by 3/4. Okay. Now, we know that when we did dividing decimals, 3/4 divided by 3/4, when you are dividing fractions, we use keep, change, flip. So you keep the first fraction the same, change to multiplication, and then flip the second fraction to be 4/3. So now, instead of dividing each side by 3/4, we are technically multiplying each side by the reciprocal. So I'm going to erase this stuff that I did here. Okay. And I'm going to show how I did this part. So I'm going to multiply by 4/3. The 4's here cancel, and the 3's here cancel. Whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other side. So I have to multiply by 4/3. So I'm left with x equals, and now I can multiply my fractions together. I'm going to look for shortcuts. I know I can divide both of those by 2, and I'm left with, or actually I can divide both of them by 4, and I'm left with 1 and 5. And I can divide both of these by 3. Okay, 4 times 1 is 4. 5 times 1 is 5. So x equals 4/5. If we were to check this, 3/4 times 4/5, well, 3 times 4 is 12. 4 times 5 is 20, remembering back to our fraction rules. So x equals 4/5. So anytime you're given a fraction, take the fraction and flip it, and that's what you're going to multiply both sides by. Okay, so there's 3 here that I want you to try. Make sure to check your answers. So we have 1/2 x equals 8. I'm going to rewrite it below so I don't have that h in the way. Okay, so train tracks. Now I'm going to multiply both sides by the reciprocal, or the multiplicative inverse. So 2/1. Multiply the other side also by 2/1. Everything cancels here, and I'm just left with x equals, well, whole numbers we put over 1. Multiplying fractions, multiply numerators. 8 times 2 is 16. 1 times 1 is just 1, so x equals 16. Let's plug that in to check. 1/2 times 16. Well, I know half of 16 does equal 8, so that is correct. Next one, 3/4 x equals 9. Train tracks. I'm going to multiply by the multiplicative inverse. Everything cancels, and I'm left with x equals, whole numbers over 1. 9 times 4, 9, 18, 27, 36. 3 times 1 is 3. Now I can simplify that. 36 divided by 3 is 12, so x equals 12. Let's plug that in to check. 3/4 times 12, well, I have to put whole numbers over 1. 3 times 9 is 36 over 4, which does equal 9. So my answer is correct. Last one, 7/8 times x equals 21/64. Multiply by the multiplicative inverse, just flipping the fraction. Everything cancels. What did I forget? My train tracks. X equals, well, I'm going to look for shortcuts on here. I know that 7 and 21 can both be divided by 7. 7 divided by 7 is 1. 21 divided by 7 is 3. 8 and 64 can both be divided by 8. 8 divided by 8 is 1. 64 divided by 8 is 8. Now I multiply. 3 times 1 is 3. 8 times 1 is 8. Plug that in for my check. 7/8 times 3/8. Multiply tops and bottoms. 3 times 7 is 21. 8 times 8 is 64. That is what we need to get back. So x equals 3/8. Okay, we're going to write and solve our equation here. Wilson has 9 pounds of trail mix. How many 3/4 pound bags of trail mix can he make? So we have to write an equation. So he has 9 pounds, and he's making 3/4 pounds of trail mix. When I see that word of, I think I need to multiply. So I'm going to take 3/4 times B for bags to get the 9 pounds. In order to solve this now, multiply by the inverse, 4/3 times 4/3. So B equals, put that over 1. 9 times 4 is 36. 1 times 3 is 3, and I know 3 can go into 36 12 times, so B equals 12. So that means that he can get 12 bags of trail mix from the 9 pounds. Which, since he has 9 pounds and he's putting them into smaller, less than 1 pound, like if he were to make 1 pound bags, he would be able to get 9 bags, but he's making less than 1 pound, so he should be getting more bags out of that. So my answer of 12 pounds or 12 bags does make sense. Okay, make sure you have all of the examples from this video written down in your notes. Go back and just re-watch it if you are still stuck or confused, and then come with questions tomorrow.